So I just want to put up like a preface before I start this video that I keep saying literary criticism, but I think I'm actually mean media literacy. So that's my bad. But anyway, enjoy. I hope you enjoy my video. Sorry about that. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was so I'm trying this new camera that I bought my wife a few years ago. She told me to try to use it basically to see if I have better video quality or not. So we'll see how that goes. It's a Nikon ZFC. From what I could tell right now, the video quality looks pretty good, but we'll see. Let me know, I guess, if anybody's watching. So anyway, today I kind of wanted to do a video about, or add to a video about the commonalities of art. Today I'm talking about literary criticism. And I kind of want to tie it back to writing because that's what I do. And I think it's important to, see how different facets of art can kind of be unified in different ways. So the way that I kind of want to frame this is I kind of want to talk about what really inspired this video. So lately, first I watched the movie Obsession, and then I kind of started seeing all the various critiques and criticisms, and then the different point of views and the good and the bad and the ugly of all that. I'm not really here to go in the nitty gritty of it, but I do know that it's kind of important data to like look at how people interpret things and try to kind of gauge like what we're really doing when we do literary criticism. And the way that I can relate that to writing is I kind of want to talk a little bit about connotation and word choice, and talk about how like those things feed into each other and can help you as a writer build a specific framework for people to look, at your work and kind of pick it apart and come away with some kind of meaning, I guess. Like what do you think when you hear the word like object? Like for me, it seems like a pretty neutral term or phrase, term, and it doesn't really lean negatively or positively in either direction. But if I modify the word into objective, then it becomes we kind of utilize it as like a more of a positive connotation to denote as something that is not affected by outside interference. Object itself is like an item. It could be anything, but objective, it immediately kind of affirms like some kind of truth or like a direct observation. So like objective would be like the book has 500 pages. That's like an objective idea, or like this like conveying an objective, I guess this is still, it's not really an opinion. It's like a fact or a truth. But also a lot of people would want their opinions to be an objective opinion. Like I'm looking at this as objectively as I can. And that's how I earn your trust as a reader, like a YouTuber or somebody that's giving critique on a piece of art. But then on the other side of this polarizing word, we can change object to objectification or objectify. Very negative, like in terms of when we apply this to a human. And that's kind of where this whole idea came from, which is watching all these people talk about obsession and how certain people will objectify others, mainly like these nice guys objectifying women, believing they're to essentially kind of belong to them, I guess, because they care so much about these people, about this girl or whatever. But nobody wants that label. Nobody wants to be looked at as if they objectify people. It's a very negative connotation. It's kind of like interesting how one word, if it's modified just ever so slightly, its connotation changes. And to further go down into that rabbit hole instead of the whole debacle of the movie Obsession, and kind of go with what everybody else is talking about right now, I kind of wanted to just talk about the idea of criticism in general and how it relates to stories. Since I'm trying to be a writer, I can't really. I guess I am actively writing, but I don't feel like I'm a real writer yet. Maybe once I get something published. But anyway, the way that I kind of wanted to talk about this is here's an opinion that I have. As a human, we want to find meaning in things in life, and the things that we engage with. We want to know that when we engage with something, that we're not wasting our time, that we're finding some kind of value out of everything that we engage with. Is that an objective opinion? I probably not. I would honestly kind of rate that more subjective, because that's an opinion that it's drawing from my own personal experience and how I feel about things. Is it a right opinion? Is it a wrong opinion? I don't think so. Because there's always a group of people, no matter how much I preach to or how many people that would agree with my sentiment, that do not agree with that. And that's okay. We can all find those, we can find, things that we can't agree with, and we can talk about it or whatever, but at the end of the day, the idea of criticizing something is not to be combative towards one another, or to basically debunk somebody's opinion of something or pull the rug out from under them, but to kind of say like, hey, this is something interesting that we both found interesting in different ways. And I kind of just want to share that viewpoint with you. I think that's like kind of the gist of what I think about when I hear about literary criticism. But if I'm taking this in terms of writing, if I look at word choice, and if I look at the connotation of each word, and I'm being deliberate in the way that I write my words, and like what is my intention as an author, the sentence structure of the sentences, the way that the prose flows, these are all things that I've been talking about, and condensing the complex it's been kind of a little bit slower on those videos, but the idea is that all these little nuances of writing connect. There's a backbone to all of it, and if you start to really dig down in there and try to understand like where these rules are coming from and why they are so important, that it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to see how all these random ideas, all these rules start to connect, and where they're coming from and why they exist. And I think the one of the facets that's really interesting right now to me, especially with all this discourse around obsession and all the different types of reviews that are going around it, YouTube as a community has been kind of bouncing off each other. But that's not the only influence that has brought me to this point. I've also seen people say that they have an objective opinion on something. And the more that I kind of was thinking about it, I watched another video by Anthony. I don't know his last name. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm one of the many. But I'll link the video that I kind of got inspired by to talk about this objective opinions on the different media that people are trying to extract meaning from or whatever. I think it's like it's such an interesting thing to think about it outside of what this person's engaging with, and just think about it from the point of view of why are they engaging with it in this way. Sometimes the answers are super clear, and sometimes they aren't. And it just depends on the way the framework and the way that this person's sharing their idea or their interaction with this piece of media. So when I go back to writing and I talk about writing and I talk about word choice and connotation, what I'm really trying to say, I keep going off on these side tangents, but what I'm really trying to say is that take the age-old rule, show, don't tell, and try to think about what it really is trying to say. It's saying, like, paint a picture for the person, right? It's telling you to show this person something. Don't just explain this to somebody. And if I take it another step backward from that, and I say that there's a correlation between showing and telling and interpretation of a source material. So let me try to share this little epiphany that I've had with this, which is if something is explained to you or told to you, how much room for interpretation is there? If I'm writing a piece and I tell you this guy is mad, it's abstract in a way because I know what mad is. I know the emotion mad, but there's varying degrees of mad. And I kind of talk about that in one of my previous videos, that mad can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But at the end of the day, it's still telling you how this character's feeling. But if I said, I'm trying to, let me show you how this character's feeling. His knuckles cracked as he tightened his fists and his arms shook and his face twisted. So we can kind of start to look in between the lines there and say, okay, this person's is having a strong reaction to something, but we don't have a lot of context out of maybe this is anxiety or maybe this is something. But when we add like an external stimulus to it, such as Sarah came by and grabbed my paper and ripped it into 1,000 pieces, and I worked so hard on that. My knuckles cracked under the force of my grip, and my arms shook, and my face twisted. I could feel every fold in my face, kind of pinched together, something like that. You start to get, you can start to paint a picture, and I think, and this is just an opinion that I have. I'm not trying to think of this as objective or subjective, but I think there is a lot more to show, don't tell that we're not really getting enough out of. There's more than just saying like, hey, write this body part doing this to show this. No, it's I think really it can also be used as a tool, as one of many tools to basically convey a message that you want the reader to pick up on. And sometimes showing, depending on how far you go with it, you can leave even more room for interpretation. And the other tools that you can use that I think are really exciting in a way is like the choices of words that you're using. Like Sarah dodged this, or Sarah sidestepped this, or Sarah walked, Sarah strolled, Sarah lounged, Sarah lunged. I don't know. I'm making up a bunch of random verbs at this point. But that illustrates the point here, that sometimes we may have the intention of showing something, and in that attempt, we find ourselves kind of up against a wall, because at the end of the day, our ability to convey a message to somebody is limited by what tools we have. So maybe your vocabulary catalog isn't extensive, and maybe you only know a few verbs, or you haven't pushed yourself to look and try to, because I guarantee you there's a word in the dictionary somewhere that means exactly what you're saying, and just it turns like 3 words into one word, And that economy of that is satisfying in a way, but also the contextual evidence that you're planting in the text, that you're telling the reader what emotion is attached to that one word that you chose as an author, that is part of a bigger scaffolding. Is It's just so cathartic in that way. And when you start picking up on those little things as a reader, subconsciously in the back of your mind, you're probably like beginning to build that evidence, and you're just not realizing it, or you are actively realizing it and you're putting it in a file in your head, and you're like, ooh, this is cool, this adds to this piece of this right here is adding to this question that I had back in the back. I feel like I'm starting to get answers, and there's something about that that's just so fun about reading and writing. So that's kind of the point that I wanted to make with this, is that you can frame a lot of what you're trying to convey by what words you're choosing and the way that you're writing your sentences to convey emotion, and all that as part of the character voice. Each word choice that you choose as an author also paints a picture of what kind of character you're trying to write. Religious characters look at the world a lot differently than the pessimistic characters that, hate the rich, or, live off the streets, or they're thieves, or they're assassins, or whatever. I don't know. There's just so many ways to approach writing that it's exciting. And I like the idea of just like these random pieces of art that we have in this world and how they relate to these different causes. So to go back to the literary criticism, I think it's important to say that depending on what word choices that we use and the way and the tone in which we handle something, it paints a picture for the viewer. So now there's a third layer to the layers of expression. There's the original piece and the author's intention behind it, and then after that we have the criticism of the person that's interacting with it. But now with YouTube and the way these videos are working, we now have another layer of that, which is the person that's interpreting the interpretation. So it's like almost becoming like this, I don't know, like a freaking Matrix type, like weird dilapidated scaffolding. But then you have the interlocking, there's YouTube people that are critiquing other YouTube people that are critiquing them, and it's just like a little echo chamber in a way. The funny thing about the whole argument of having an objective truth to me is that I don't really necessarily buy into the fact that that any one person has the objective truth. And maybe there is, some merit to it. Like if we're really going to look at something objectively but I think more so, I like the idea that when you really like something or you really dislike something and it pushes you to want to share your opinion on it and what flaws or what great strengths this piece of media has, or a mix of both, those opinions often fuel the desire for others to create. Especially the person that's critiquing. They say, oh, I like this, but I feel like I want it to go a little bit further in this direction. And a lot of people may agree with that. And so now you decide to do the same thing, but you take it in the direction that you want to take it. And now there's a whole nother branch of, whatever art form it is, there's a whole nother branch of it. And I feel like that's what happens over time, is like there's somebody that says, I like that, but I think you could do better with this by doing it this way. And it's not necessarily that it's better or worse or whatever. It's just that person's opinion. But at the end of the day, I feel like objective truths are really just opinions, and they're okay. That's probably just diluting it down, but if I think about it in terms of math or numbers, like the people that are objectively criticizing literature or movies or whatever, TV shows, games, they usually are doing it through an audience. And the way that I think of it is that person's objective opinion is only validated as an objective truth because there's a majority number of people that agree with that truth. We kind of throw out the minority people because they disagree and they're so far and few, especially in a community in YouTube. And that's not factoring in the people that have engaged with the media or the art and do not have an opinion of it whatsoever because the art wasn't strong enough for them to have an objective opinion or subjective opinion, however you want to look at it. You could kind of go with that both ways. But I think at the end of the day, no matter what you put out there, you have to accept the fact that you're not going to have a unanimous objective truth on it because depending on how much of the message you're trying to convey is told to the audience, people are always going to interpret it in a different way. And it's not a bad thing. And sometimes it does suck. And sometimes it even incurs wrath in people. But isn't that the point of art? Is for people to feel something when they see your art and to engage with it, whether that be negative or positive. Though I'm not saying go out and make a piece of art to start a riot or promote like slander or promote something evil. And even those things can be well within that minority group. I just think of it as when we go around and we say, this is the objective truth, or this is the objective criticism that is there for this story. There's always going to be a group of people that do just disagree with it. And that might be political or that might be religious, for religious reasons or whatever. At the end of the day, it's still a disagreement and it's an opinion. So it's not necessarily wrong. It's just the way that person feels. I know it's kind of tangential to what I usually talk about, but I just felt very passionate about it and I just wanted to talk about it and explore something and this idea of how things connect, and seeing those connections and different forms of art is just so interesting to me. And I also like to watch other people's perspectives on things and just try to understand the world a lot better. There's so many good YouTubers out there that are sharing their culture and their religion and their beliefs, and it's just so enlightening. And it really makes me think about my life and how, sometimes you feel privileged and then other times you feel down. And a lot of the times I feel like that in itself fuels a lot of your interpretations of things that you engage with. So anyway, after all that long-winded stuff, I just think that when I boil it down to techniques in writing, think about the way in which you're framing your scaffolding, what message you want to convey, or if you're subconsciously trying to convey a message that you don't know that's there yet, go back and look at what you're writing and see what theme is popping up and see what word choices you're using that really kind of pulls you in that direction, because oftentimes there's a pattern there that you don't even know is even there. So anyway, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.